The WOLLSTONECROFT Affair. Whilst the Bavarian and Swiss governments would have the general public believe that what was witnessed by the inhabitants of the village of Balzers in southern Liechtenstein on the night of October 12th to 13th, 3052, was no more than a strange aurora caused by unusual but not at all unnatural activity in the Earth's ionosphere, those villagers have very different things to say of the affair. The fact that the strange lights and colors were not seen from any of the other surrounding locales, distant though they may be, does little to support the villagers' story, nor does their claim that the light did not so much emanate from the sky, but from the very ether, whilst the disappearances of the inhabitants of the houses on the eastern edge of the village is regarded officially as superstitious desertion. Additionally, the destruction of Castle Drachenberg on the northern slope of the mountain Falkness is officially regarded as having no correlation with the occurrence in Balzers, and is attributed to the rash actions of a band of wanted misfits with a noted animosity for the castle's lord and master, whose body was not found amidst the wreckage of the ancient edifice. In fact, many believe that the alleged lights and colors were engineered by those outlaws as an excuse to attack the castle, as evidenced by their broadcasted warnings preceding the entire affair. The infamous reputation of the MHS Hysteria and her crew does little to dispel this belief, and the sight of their ship fleeing the site of the wreckage does little more. Their account of the events on the night of October 12th to 13th sent to the regional press and authorities has been publicly dismissed by the latter, but widely published by the former, as to give the incident a notable amount of consideration by its readers. The entire matter began, as far as the crew of the Hysteria is concerned, with the purchase of Castle Drachenberg by Dr. Friedrich WOLLSTONECROFT of Hamburg, a man of science renowned for his radical views on biology and eugenics, and for his involvement with Baron Eisenfaust's Übermensch program during the war with Great Britain. His ambition to extend the limits of mortal faculty was noted in his published dissertations on genetic engineering, and he stirred a significant controversy among the scientific community when he decided to fit his own brain with a mechanical seventh lobe to augment his cognitive skills. The doctor's reputation drew the attention of Baron Eisenfaust, and made him the ideal candidate to develop a breed of superhuman soldiers for Bavaria's military. When the war ended, and the secrets of the Übermensch program were brought to light, many people on both sides of the war called out for Dr. WOLLSTONECROFT to be brought to trial on the charges of war crimes. The records, reports, and photographs of the doctor's subjects made for damning evidence in the case against him. One of the tribunal members even had to be escorted out of the chamber, after nearly fainting. Many believe that WOLLSTONECROFT would have been convicted had he not received an official pardon from Baron Eisenfaust. In the years following the trial, WOLLSTONECROFT secluded himself away in his laboratory in Hamburg, occupying himself with private research. The rare occasions on which he was seen in public were during his trips to New England for consulting purposes. It was in November of 3051 that Dr. WOLLSTONECROFT decided to purchase Castle Drachenberg. Built on the precipitous northern slope of Falkness in 1430 by Baron Albrecht von Drachenberg, the edifice had long been given over to decay after the Baron's descendants migrated to Switzerland in 2805 to escape the Austrian revolt, and was thus easily obtained by Dr. WOLLSTONECROFT. 3 miles west of the mountain's northern slope lies the quiet and rustic village of Balzers, though not so rustic as to be completely ignorant of the doctor's reputation. Having heard vague rumors of Dr. WOLLSTONECROFT's uncouth experiments during the Prince's War, the villagers of Balzers were reluctant to welcome such a man. WOLLSTONECROFT, however, proposed to modernize the village by constructing a specialized Tesla tower on the grounds of the castle, and even hire workers from the village to build it. Prior to his coming, Balzers had received its electricity from a transmission tower in southern Bavaria of only moderate power, making the supply weak and unreliable. Thus the doctor's proposal was well received by the villagers, and put them at ease about his coming. No one then wondered at what interest a scientist so long devoted to the field of human biology had in building a magnifying transmitter. The restoration of the castle began in December of 3051, and was completed by the end of the winter. The antiquated leaking roof was replaced, the crumbling west tower reconstructed, the sullen stone walls reinforced and insulated, and the entire east wing converted into a laboratory with a glass dome ceiling. By March of 3052, Dr. Wollstonecroft had moved into Drachenberg, and the construction of the Tesla Tower began. Diligent local workers came up the mountain from Balzers and set to work assembling the coil. They were paid well and grateful for the opportunity to rejuvenate their town's electrical grid, so they did not question the doctor's demands for absolute secrecy, or wonder at the unusual machinery and equipment laid out for them to assemble. It was in June of 3052 that Wollstonecroft's activity in Liechtenstein drew the attention of the MHS Hysteria. The crew of the notorious vessel is written of in many ancient and modern histories as being time-travelers of maverick notoriety, and remain wanted fugitives from the British and Bavarian crowns for supposed piracy during the Prince's War. At the time of the affair, the crew consisted of 4. Captain Edward von Arkham, eccentric, mad-hatted man of science and former British inventor; Quartermaster Otgood Kingsley Mamer, former hired gun turned tinker from the American Midwest; mechanic Lily Cantari, Japanese engineering prodigy; and Dr. Augustus Mausiagnackt, partially mechanical Bavarian scholar. It was through Dr. Mausiagnackt that the Hysteria first gained interest in Wollstonecroft's activity. Mausiagnackt had been recruited by Baron Eisenfaust to advise on the Übermensch program, and had worked beneath Wollstonecroft before fleeing the country and the war. During his trial, the Hysteria's crew were among those calling out for Wollstonecroft's conviction. It is unclear how the Hysteria first learned of the doctor's business at Castle Drachenberg, but it was on the 20th of June that the office of the Bavarian Viceroy in Vaduz received a wire from the crew, urging that Wollstonecroft be detained as soon as possible. This first of many warnings from the Hysteria did not go into detail as to their reasoning for such a demand, but it was evident that they believed that the machine Wollstonecroft was building at Drachenberg was not a Tesla transmitter. They based this contention off of a number of subsequent contentions, very few of which could be supported with concrete evidence. Their main concern, it seems, was Dr. Wollstonecroft's studies into the work of an American man of the early 20th century by the name of Crawford Tillinghast. A metaphysical researcher of Providence, Rhode Island, Tillinghast was convinced of the existence of an extra-dimensional plane overlapping and conterminous with our own, imperceptible to human beings but for the use of sense organs long since atrophied to our species after millennia of evolutionary regression. He had claimed to have invented a device that could awaken these dormant sense organs via the emission of resonance waves produced by a specially tuned electric oscillator. Tillinghast died before the machine could be exhibited, the cause of death being attributed to apoplexy. Having no heir or surviving family, his estate and affairs were seized by the police and later distributed to the families of his servants, who were believed to have been murdered by Tillinghast, their remains never having been found. The crew of the Hysteria inferred by Wollstonecroft's multiple visits to Providence prior to the purchase of Castle Drachenberg that he had been searching for Tillinghast's notes with the intent of duplicating his experiments. The office of the Viceroy's dismissal of the Hysteria's warning is possibly owed to the lack of any concrete evidence of potential danger these experiments would present if reproduced. However, included in the wire was an excerpt from an appraisal of Crawford Tillinghast's work and theory by the great Nikola Tesla, given to a reporter in 1920.
Whilst Mr. Tillingast's engineering theories may in fact prove viable to his proposed application, he misunderstands the biological significance of that which he seeks to awake. His hypothesis of evolutionary regression to explain the degeneration of these sense organs is only half accurate. Humankind advances as a species by inheriting the advantageous mutations of our progenitors, those that aided their survival. That which is dormant within us is dormant because its purpose was detrimental to our survival. Mr. Tillingast has claimed that there are other planes of space and time that surround us beyond the perception of our degenerated senses. He has failed to consider why these senses have degenerated in the first place. Perhaps it is because they allowed us to see that which we were not meant to see.
Captain von Arkham, who was well acquainted with Tesla, added in the wire the following cryptic anecdote.
A torch lit in the darkness will let you see the monsters, but it will also let the monsters see you. Tillingast's machine was a torch.